Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a really controversial 1983 book called Endless Rapture by Helen Hazen. And it explores this super uncomfortable intersection between romance, female fantasy, and violence.
So the book kicks off with this really startling question. Hazen saw these hugely popular novels, bestsellers of the day, where, for instance, in The Flame and the Flower, the heroine gets raped on page 34. In Love's Tender Fury, it's page 30. And these things sold millions and millions of copies. So Hazen had to ask, what is going on here? What does this fascination really tell us about the female imagination?
All right, so to really get what Hazen's arguing, we first have to step into the world of the romance novel. And you have to remember, this was a publishing juggernaut, built pretty much exclusively by women for women.
So Hazen spots this really stark evolution happening in the genre. You've got what she calls the old guard, right? Think Georgette Heyer. In those books, the whole challenge is to seduce a man to get him to finally confess his undying love. But then you get the new wave. And Hazen argues that these authors, people like Lola Burford, they took all those respectable old-fashioned flirtations and just translated them directly into rape. But here's the crucial part. The ending was still the same. The woman still conquers the man and gets his love.
And this is where Hazen makes her most controversial claim. She argues, look, this fantasy, it's not actually about wanting real-world violence. It's about an illusion, a kind of ritual of love. The idea is that a man is so completely overcome with desire for you, he'll break every single rule of honor just to have you. So for Hazen, it's not a fantasy of violence at all. It's a fantasy of being that desirable.
Now, this wasn't some niche thing hiding in the corners. By the 1970s, this theme exploded. It became a huge commercial force, creating a whole subgenre that Hazen straight up calls the rape romance.
And the scale here, it's just staggering. I mean, look at these numbers. We are talking millions and millions of copies. For Hazen, this was the proof. This wasn't some weird fringe interest. No way. This was a massive cultural phenomenon, and it needed a real explanation.
So here's the key thing to understand. It's all about the story structure. Think about it. In the older romances, a kiss was the big climax at the end of the book. But in these new rape romances, the assault happens right at the beginning. So the rape isn't the tragic ending, it's the beginning. It's the catalyst that kicks the whole plot into motion.
And the romantic conflict just escalates dramatically. Hazen points out that where you used to have a sidelong glance as an obstacle, now you have a slap across the face. The first minuet is replaced, shatteringly, by rape. What comes next is even more surprising. Beatings, starvation, you name it. And yet, and this is Hazen's whole point, the fundamental story is exactly the same. A woman has to overcome this incredibly difficult, cruel man to finally win his love.
Okay, so this is what leads Hazen to her big critique of the feminism of her time. She makes this fascinating argument that romance novels and feminist literature actually start from the exact same place. Women suffering because of men. But they end up in completely different worlds.
She calls this a battle between two kinds of Gothic stories. On one side, you have the romantic Gothic. Think Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights. The woman suffers, sure, but she's rewarded in the end. She conquers the difficult man and finds love and security. A happy ending. But on the other side, you have what she calls the feminist Gothic. And according to Hazen, this type of story demands an unhappy ending. The suffering becomes political. The woman has to trudge off, defeated, with nothing but her newfound political awareness.
And Hazen uses some pretty jarring examples from feminist fiction to back this up, like this quote from Lois Gould's A Sea Change. Her point is that in these novels, the abusive man isn't a romantic challenge you can overcome with love anymore. No. He becomes something else entirely, a symbol for the entire patriarchal system.
So, from there, Hazen takes aim at what she sees as feminism's proposed solution to all this male cruelty, and that solution is the ideal of androgyny.
She points to thinkers like Carolyn Hailburn, who were big champions of androgyny, and the idea was pretty straightforward. If we could just liberate people from these rigid, appropriate gender roles, we could create a world with less masculine aggression. The hope was that this would, basically save society from itself.
But according to Hazen, this whole idea created a major split in the feminist movement. She saw two main factions. First, you had the androgynists.
Their goal was to save the world by blending gender roles, trying to make everyone more peacefully human. But then you had the other side, who she calls the radical Amazons. Their goal was much simpler: destroy the patriarchy, exalt women, and see men as the enemy. And to show just how extreme this could get, Hazen pulls out quotes from radical theologians like Mary Daly. I mean, look at this. Daly is talking about a misdirectomy. For Hazen, this kind of rhetoric was the logical and, frankly, terrifying conclusion of an anti-masculine philosophy, a real dead end that offered no solutions.
So, you might be wondering, how does Hazen tie all of this together? Romance novels, rape fantasies, feminism. What's the connection? Well, she proposes her own grand theory. And to do it, she reaches all the way back to 18th century philosophy.
Her whole case is built on the ideas of the philosopher Edmund Burke, and he had this famous theory about two primary human passions. First, there's the sublime. That's the strongest emotion you can feel. It comes from things that are terrifying, things that are connected to pain and danger. Then you have the beautiful. That's the opposite. It's about what's pleasing, what's well-formed, and it's connected to pleasure and love.
Okay, but here comes Hazen's big twist. She says Burke got it right, but he was only describing men. For men, the sublime, that exciting terror, comes from threats to their own self-preservation. Think fear of death. But for women, Hazen argues, it's completely reversed. For them, the source of the sublime, of that intense, terrifying excitement, is sexual danger, what Burke called generation. And their sense of the beautiful, of calm and pleasure, comes from self-preservation, from order and safety.
And this right here, this quote, is the key to her entire argument. For Hazen, this reversal explains everything. It explains why these romance novels, with all their tension and sexual danger, are so powerful for millions of women. It's because that danger, she says, triggers the feeling of the sublime. It's the ultimate source of excitement in the female imagination. And so the best story, the best ending, is one that confronts that sublime danger and resolves it into the beauty of love, order, and security.
And so Hazen leaves us with a really profound and, let's be honest, unsettling question. What if this huge conflict she outlines between romance readers and feminist thinkers isn't just political? What if it's rooted in a fundamental difference in how men and women imagine love and danger? It was an incredibly provocative idea back in 1983, and it's one that still challenges us today.